Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. How are we doing today, goalies? Welcome back to episode 38 of the DIY Goalie Podcast. As always, with your hosts Nathan Park and Connor Monday. How are you doing today, Connor?
Well, you know what? We are past the crazy times right now. Hopefully, everybody had a fantastic Christmas, and obviously, by the time that this goes out, we will be past. It'll literally
No, it'll
be
be
New
New
Year's
Year's
Eve.
Eve.
It'll
Yeah.
literally be New Year's Eve. So, hopefully, everybody behaves themselves New Year's Eve. That's the important part. Don't drink and drive. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, which is not a lot of things realistically. But I'm good. I'm good. It was a bit of a different Christmas this year, in terms of the fact that there was a lot more items for a person that's not even here yet. So I had to. So we have quite a few baby things set aside, clothes, bottles, and a tiny little Oilers jersey that my parent or my father-in-law claims is child abuse. So you know, we'll see. They're also getting like a little Flames jersey. So I think that might be
Oof.
child abuse actually, but well, we'll see.
Well, you need diapers. That's all good. Um, yeah. So,
Oh, jeez. While I'm mid sip too, that was
yeah,
perfect.
mid
Um,
drink.
I
You
want to
didn't
okay.
spit
I
it
want to
out.
talk
Proud
about.
of you.
I did not. Well, it's beer, and I don't want to get it all over my setup. I want to talk about a couple things quickly before we get started, if I may, because I think this is really cool. Um, so typically, like every year, I get hockey cards because I'm still a 12-year-old child at heart, and I have some really interesting cards here that I want to show off, and I'm gonna take over that. So here's my one segment for today. Um, and we'll kind of go at it from there. So yeah, these are the cards. So if you guys are watching over on YouTube, I have a nice little Linus Olmark in the in his Boston Bruins get up. Where I think it's one of the it's the 100th anniversary jersey. So that's pretty cool. I like that. I also have what else? I have a what is this? It's a Jeremy Swayman card, and it's one of those Dazzler cards that Upper Deck has put out this year. So this one's also really cool, and I like this one. And then I also have it's not his rookie card, but I think it's still a pretty cool looking card. Jesper Wallstad with the Minnesota Wild. So that's another one right there. That's pretty cool. I like that one. And then where is he? There he is. Good old Mackenzie Blackwood when he's still with the Sharks. Just signed his 5 year. Was it 5 year? It was 5 year deal with
I don't know.
with
You assume I
Colorado.
keep up on hockey news, and
Well,
he didn't sign with them. He got traded. So
yeah, but no, like he either just signed with
yeah.
Colorado today and like signed like a massive extension, or yeah, I think it was literally either today as of recording this or like a day or two ago. So,
Shows how
anyways,
much I'm
point
on
being,
top of it.
well, somebody has to, I suppose. Anyways, point being, I got some cool cards. I'm happy with them, and yeah, so I thought I'd share that with everybody because I thought people might like it.
All right. Well, I was going to ask you what your New Year's resolution was, but I feel like we've probably taken too much of the start of this episode. So
I feel like we can still talk about it. I feel like we
we'll slip it in between our two segments. How's that
can.
sound? We'll give the
Fair.
listeners a break. All right. Um, I don't know. I guess I'll go first today.
I like totally ruin
Since
your thing.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
as you can tell, we're in holiday mode still. Um, no. So what I wanted to talk about today, kind of relates to a lot of what we're doing with the podcast and kind of, the general overview, I guess, of being a coach and being a attempted content creator in the goalie world, I guess. But I wanted to talk about basically the importance of networking and the opportunities that can come with that. I don't think people realize just how small the hockey world in general is, and how much smaller the goalie community is itself too. Um, there is, like, I don't know. I know the whole saying of like 6 degrees of separation when it comes to like life, how you're somehow only 6 people away from knowing everybody in the world. To me, when it comes to the goalie world, there's probably like 2 degrees of separation. Like there's probably two people between you and everybody else in the goalie community. Um, so what I wanted to touch on, I guess, is just when you guys are um out and about, whether you are a younger goalie, kind of an elite goalie, more towards getting into the elite streams of hockey at an older level, whether you're a beer league goalie, any of that stuff, the connections that you can make through hockey are, like, they can make significant impacts on your life, both away from and at the rink. So just wanted to go through a couple of things that you can keep in the back of your mind as you make these interactions, as you meet new people, as you interact with the people you already know and have known for years. But the impact of the impression that you make on people is massive when it comes to the hockey community, both good and bad. And for you goalies who are striving for the higher levels and who want to get through those elite levels of hockey, it can make or break you. Basically, the impression that people have, and to an extent, it is somewhat unfortunate that sometimes decisions are made not just on skill, but at the same token too, right? Like, it's hard to make your place at a high level when you're not a good teammate, when you've got a bad attitude, stuff like that, right? So think of these things when you are interacting with people, and think of how you want people to view you and kind of the perception that they have of you. So, you know, making sure that you're early, like early is on time is late. Anytime you're at practice, at video, at dry land, at whatever the case is, make an impression. Don't be the last guy out there. Um, Shake hands, talk to people. And I want to elaborate more on the talking to people in a little bit, but make sure you are interacting. A lot of kids these days, even adults too, one of the hardest things that um, people have, or one of the things people struggle with the most, is talking to people, having a legitimate conversation, walking up to somebody saying, hey, how's it going, who are you, what do you do, blah blah blah, right? So the more personable you can be, the more that you put yourself out there, the more connections you can make. You'd be surprised at the things that can happen from that. I mean, just as an example, like, we've gotten to talk to some cool people just on the podcast from other people we know, right? Like, even, you know, it's been 12 years since I've gone overseas to play ball hockey, and I reached out to Belly, like, a couple months ago, and said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Do you want to come on? He's like, I can't right now because of my contract with the Devils. And then once he stopped, I reached out and I was like, hey, you want to come on? And he's like, yeah, sure. And we got a cool interview out of it. We got to see a different perspective on things, right? And that's the kind of stuff that can happen. It might not just be helping you get on a team. And I'm sure Connor can touch on it, but he's gotten to do play by play stuff just from putting himself out there and talking to people and getting to know them and all that stuff too. And I'll let you get more into that. But The big thing that I want my segment to, I guess, portray to you guys is take the time to think of the connections that you can make through hockey and where they could potentially take you. Um, when I talked earlier about getting out there and talking to people, take some time to, have a conversation and get to know people. Like, not just, oh, how long have you been playing? Like, you can talk to them and be like, hey, what do you do away from the game? What hobbies do you do? What, you know, if you're a beer league goalie, hey, you got kids? Like, what do you do for work? Whatever the case is. And you just never know kind of where a connection or an interaction can take you. Like, even if you're a beer league goalie, and you're not striving to hit any sort of elite stream of hockey or anything like that, you just never know when, like, getting to know certain guys might lead to a cool opportunity, maybe like some sort of outdoor game of some sort, or a charity game or something like that. And it's kind of cool too, like, just some of the stuff you can do outside of playing, right? Like, you know, play by play or video or, coaching, equipment manager, whatever the case is. Like, there's a lot of cool things you can do outside of just playing too. And most of those opportunities come pretty much from who you know and the connections that you make, as opposed to, applying for a job, right? Like, I mean, you look at the NHL, how many times is there a brand new coach hired, right? Like, not very often. It's usually just kind of a carousel of the same guys. And it's kind of like that throughout the sport at all the levels. So, take the time to get to know people, ask them about themselves personally, get to know them, and leave a good impression, right? Like, we've talked before about how having the wrong impression, not being a pro, parents getting involved, all this stuff can lead to, you know, not getting the opportunities that you might have otherwise had. So just think about that anytime you're interacting with a coach, with any sort of support position. So treat your equipment managers well, treat your trainers well, treat your physio people well, whatever the case is, right? Make good impressions, be a good person, work on that network, and you never know where it's going to lead. There's always cool things that can happen.
I was debating on how to respond to your spiel, and there was like a few different ways that I can go about it. But I think the way that I want to go about it is that social media, if used effectively, is one of the greatest tools that an athlete can have. In the same breath, though, it's as much as hockey content creators make fun of it, and as much as there is a stereotype about it, it also is dependent on who you know. Um, I think, I mean, again, going back to the social media aspect of it, I mean, that's how we managed to get somebody like Joaquin Gage to come out. As a matter of fact, it's actually how you and I met, right, over social media.
It's
Um,
pretty much how we've gotten 80% of our guests on the podcast, just
yeah,
reaching out.
exactly. Exactly. The worst thing that can happen is that somebody can say no, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, in the same breath too, like it is with this sport in particular. I can't say definitively on other sports, but it is exactly almost exactly like who you know, right? And so there is kind of in a way, a gate kept kind of community within the hockey community, just in general. But I think Joaquin's story in particular was very inspiring, or very interesting, and I think it's almost maybe in a way a lost art where an athlete will reach out to general manager of the Edmonton Oil Kings or the Kamloops Blazers or insert team here and say, "Hey, I want somewhere to play. Do you have a spot?" And they might say yes, they might say no, or they might say, "Come on out. We'll see what you got, kid." Um, there is a Facebook group. I think it's like junior hockey players or parents or junior hockey. It's junior hockey something.
Isn't it junior hockey camps?
Yes, that's the one.
I
I
think.
think it's junior hockey camps and hockey development. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I really like that page, and I really like it because like I used it earlier this year because I had a goalie reach out to me and had said like, hey, like I'm looking for somewhere to play because the team that he was supposed to play for, that he played for last year, wasn't really given a definitive answer on whether he's playing or whether he's getting the starting role or not. And so I just ended up putting it out on that Facebook group, and I had a team from somewhere in BC. Can't remember the name, but they were like a reigning division champion, or I think like they were like playoff champions last year, and they were looking to repeat. And I told this kid like this is a great for me it was a great opportunity. Like if it was somebody like me who wanted to go play, I think I would definitely take it or definitely jump on it because number one, you get to go play overseas. You get to go play in a different province. You are going to a team that's looking to go back to back. I don't know where they're at currently, and I should check up on them. Um, again, just stuff like that. Like even in the same breath, like talking about like who it's in the same. It's about who you know. Um, it's kind of how I got my jobs in junior hockey because I knew because one of the teams that I was playing beer league for, the head coach's dad's sister was one of my teammates, and she was like, "Hey, my nephew's looking for a goalie coach," and I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" And then that's how I ended up coaching for the two other junior teams that I was working for, and then by proxy as well because they were looking for somebody to do play by play. I do YouTube as a hobby sometimes, so I was like, I don't mind getting behind a mic and doing all that. I know a lot. I know my way around technology in the same breath, and that's how I ended up doing play by play. And I most recently did play by play for the Edmonton AAA Junior Oilers here in Edmonton, Alberta, which was a really cool experience. And I can officially say that I called an Oilers game, again, it's the power of networking and the power of knowing where people who you know is greatest thing ever. I have quite a few contacts in my phone of people that I've maybe talked to once, but I have them in my phone or I have them on my Facebook, Instagram, whatever, because you never know when there's one day where I'm either looking for a job or whether there's an athlete that's looking for a place to play, and I say, hey, I can reach out to these people for you and go from there. I will say though, in the same breath as now I'm going on a tangent, it is definitely a scary thing. I am not. I mean, as much as I like to talk, I am brutal when it comes to introducing myself or when it comes to meeting new people for the first time. I think Nathan, you can maybe attest to this. When you and I first met the first time, I don't think I was definitely wasn't very chatty as I am now. Uh, maybe a little timid,
Liked it
but
better back then.
fair enough. But point being is that like it definitely is a scary thing. Like like even as a coach, I genuinely hate. I don't want to say I genuinely hate, but I genuinely dislike going to work with a new team for the first time, and I'm by myself, and I look like an idiot. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea where I'm going. I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to or anything. Um, but eventually, I figure it out, and I go and you go from there. So it is scary, but you can't progress in your career if you don't take those risks. Essentially,
Yeah. And the same tools that you use for mindset and for the mental side of things on the ice can translate to helping you with those situations off the ice too, right? Just anything that you found has worked for you with coping with nerves or anything like that, use the same stuff in these situations. Because, like, you just never know. I know my 16-year-old year, I got invited to the Oil Kings rookie camp, which I mean, quite a lot of people did, but I went and I knew that it wasn't like I had no chance in heck making the Edmonton Oil Kings at 16 as a goalie who, was just hopefully going to play mid to AAA at the time. But I actually showed really well. I made it past rookie camp, and I was the last unsigned goalie left at main camp. And they cut me, and I just was like, yeah, awesome. Like, this farther than I thought I was going to make, right? But the Oil Kings goalie coach at the time was Dustin Schwartz, and he was the goalie coach for the Spruce Grove Saints, who picked me up as a 17-year-old to play my first year of junior A and kind of kickstarted my career that way. So I don't know how much that Oil Kings camp played into that, but I have a feeling that it did a little bit, right? And so you just never know when there's a coach who's, you meet for the first time that 2 years down the road is now scouting you and was like, oh, that guy was awesome to talk to, seems like a great person, and he's doing well on the ice. Let's bring him on board, right? You just never know what that kind of translates to.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of equivocate it to the same way where um, going to school in Edmonton here is a school called Vimy Ridge Academy, which is rather one of the top hockey schools in the province, I think. And you go there and you meet a lot of guys who played major juniors, who played in the NHL or some type of pro hockey at one point, and few of those there's a few of those guys specifically who were goalies that I still talk to today, whether they were students or whether they were teachers at that school. There, I still talk to Edmonton Oil Kings goalie coach Curtis Muka on a tri-monthly basis, quarter monthly basis, however
Quarterly,
you want to put
quarterly.
it. Quarterly, I talk to him quarterly, but again, but like to kind of echo Jabo in our recent interview, like I try not to bother those guys a whole lot because they're obviously busy and they have probably a lot better things to do than to talk to me. But regardless of that fact, though, is that the fact is that they're there, they know who I am. If I needed them to for a reference for whatever reason, or I'm sure that there has been conversations where my name has popped up for whatever reason, and I would hope that they would speak highly of me and going from there, right? So it's again to kind of echo what I was talking about earlier. It's a matter of who you know, which
Yeah,
is kind of
and
a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, I suppose.
yeah, it depends on how you play it.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself in a similar situation like Connor does, and you just keep hounding your coworker until he lets you on your podcast, then then 20 episodes later, you're you're a regular. Then you never know. But
That was after a year of knowing you, or after a year or two of knowing you already, and then just bugging you at that point. So
yeah,
I can
I
get away
just
with it.
I brought him on just so I didn't have to hear him. Hey, can I
It's a
come back on?
it's a pity thing. It's a pity thing.
Yeah,
Is what it
exactly.
is.
So sorry for all you guys who have to put up with him, but no, just
You
kind of
love me and you know it.
yeah, just kind of to segue a little bit because just quick before we get into yours, I'll touch on my two New Year's resolutions. So one of them is actually to do a better job of being personable and networking and stuff because I do feel like I don't know, I wouldn't call myself introverted, but I just like to keep to myself. I guess I kind of live in my own little bubble, which I think has kind of maybe closed some doors that could have potentially been there, like in
Right.
hindsight, looking at it. So, want to try and get to know people a little bit more. That's one of my things. And then the other one is I want to put out some more content for you guys and be a little bit better on that. I think the last month or so done a bit better job. But trying to make time for you guys and do a little bit better with the DIY goalie stuff because that's kind of why it was created, but with everything else going on, it's kind of been put to the wayside a little bit. So those are my 2 New Year's resolutions for the year.
I suppose I'll get into mine here before we jump into my segment. I kind of echo you with the goalie content. I mentioned in previous videos, it's like, yeah, I'm putting out some goalie content, and like I never do. Um,
And now you share everything that True North and the DIY posts.
well, brand reputation is what it is. And then like I suppose like my other New Year's resolution this year is kind of a bit of a personal one, and it's a typical one at the same time because I'm going back to the gym. I'm starting to um, work on myself, but also just because I have a kid on the way as well, so I want to be in better shape than I am right now. Um, and then yeah, I think just anything like I don't know, just kind of I don't know, but just maybe just putting my name out there more. That's why I bug Nathan to be on the DIY podcast full time. Um, and but but I don't know. It's
Sorry, guys.
shout out Brad McDonald. I hate you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's those. Yeah, those are those two for sure. I think just over anything, I want to make sure, and this isn't like just for the new year. I think it's for the long term. Is that I want to make an impact on the goalie community in whatever form that takes place. So whether it is, we joke about it, but whether it is me coming on the podcast and helping doing that, helping around with True North and DIY, and even doing my own small little thing and whatever that takes place, I think just at the end of the day, I want to say like, yeah, I made an impact on the goalie community. I made an impact on my community here in Edmonton, and just I want to be able to walk away from this happy, whatever day, whenever day, hopefully in the far future when I do decide to walk away from it.
Goaltending is a matter of inches. As goalies, we need to gain every advantage possible. This is where Visual Edge can help. With Visual Edge's cutting edge cognitive and visual training, you'll improve your reaction time, anticipation, and overall decision making. Imagine seeing the puck faster, reacting quicker, and making those clutch saves.
Walking in one on one makes a shot, big save by the goaltender, and it comes back the other way.
Ready to unlock your full potential? Visit visualedge.com and use code DIYPOD for 20% off. That's DIYPOD at visualedge.com. VIZUAL edge.com. Yeah. Awesome. Well, what do you got for us on
Um,
your end of things today?
so I wanted to talk about this maybe a couple episodes ago, but I ended up going a different route. But I wanted to talk about spring hockey and summer hockey and whether you should be involved in that or whether you should go and play a different sport this year. Nathan's smiling at me because I think he has some thoughts on this. And
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, so um, I saw this, and I only wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about it when it was relevant, because there was a lot of posts on the Facebook groups that I'm in talking about, hey, we are looking at playing spring hockey. We're looking at playing summer hockey. Oh, we got invited to this. We got invited to that. What should we do once this winter season ends? Um, there are pros and cons to it. I think maybe the cons maybe outweigh more of the pros. Um, so we'll put it this way. Spring hockey, having coached in it, is a completely different beast compared to winter hockey. My God, those like they're insane. They are, well, I won't say they're insane, but they're very intense.
Just
Is what we'll put it.
quickly, I played one season of spring hockey growing up. We did not win a single game. We split games starting, and even then, I played in every single game because we got pulled every time. we lost the game 11-0, and the shots were like 72 to like 5 or something. It's it's different now. It's a little bit better, but
Yeah.
that's my
Um,
personal anecdote.
which is fair. When I coached, um, I think like I like it because I coached I think it was 3 years actually in spring hockey, and we had some fairly good teams. Um, I think we won a few. I think we won a few medals, um, but just I couldn't get over how much of a like how much like it was essentially like AAA on drugs. Essentially, is what it was. Um, I found it to be good hockey because I think it for those who take hockey very very seriously, it's um, you get some really good players out of it. You don't get some great players, but I think just for those looking to stay in the sport, I think it's fine. Um, I know that the costs are really up there, and the fact that tryouts are like were happening like mid to like basically mid November to mid
November, yeah.
December. And then there are even still some now. There's a few teams that I follow on Instagram that are in the Edmonton area that are I think they have tryouts coming up come again. It's either camps or tryouts that are coming up again in January. Um, so it is a different beast. It is good hockey, but there is a lot of drama that I think also comes with it. Um, again, talking about people who you know and such, there are definitely some teams that are loaded up with parents or that are loaded up with kids rather whose parents know one another or you slip some cash under the table and such, and all of a sudden little Johnny has a spot on the team when he should be playing in tier 6 hockey. um there but it also is dependent on too on whether you're invited to come try out or whether you're just openly trying out for the team. I think in the same breath with that is that there are pros and cons to that as well. I think if you are invited to try out for the team, it means that there were some people watching, whoever that may be, from whoever, um, and then versus trying out as well, for spring hockey. Um, but all of that said and done is hockey parents, need to also let their kids be kids. Let them try other sports. Let them play. Let them play other sports is what I'm trying to say actually, um, because you can take a lot of aspects from sports like baseball, for example, and can apply that back into your game, like lacrosse, like soccer, ball hockey, even. I think it's good to get away from the game because you don't want to be burnt out by the time you're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old and you're like I just this is too much for me. It's it's a great idea in theory, but I honestly genuinely believe that there are more cons than there are pros. But it also is dependent on like in just who you're going to play for. So I suppose at the end of the day, it's not. I guess first off, talk to your child. Talk to your child and say, what do you want to do once hockey's done for the season? What is your child's plan? What is your child's goal? Do they want to play? Do they want to play basketball in the summertime? Do they want to play baseball, or do they want to continue playing hockey? Okay, then what are the options from there? Parents should do what their children wants when it comes to their physical activity, not what the parents wants. And then Nathan, you kind of touched on it a little bit already, but I wanted to just kind of touch about our experiences as well. Um, you kind of already went through yours, but I actually had a really good experience with spring hockey. I was on. I think I was coaching there for about 3 to 4 years. I have the document here. I actually okay. So here's how nerdy I am. So I actually have like a whole document rather, um, that has like my entire coaching career in it when it comes like to all the teams that I coached. So I'm gonna pull this up here. Hold on, give me a second. Yeah, so I coach. So I spent 3. Yeah, so I spent 3 years coaching coaching spring hockey, and of those years, I coached about 5 teams. So each team had their pros and cons. There were definitely some parents or some kids on that team that were a little bit more expressive with their emotions than others. Um, but all in all, like I had a good experience. It's a shame that the teams or that the organization folded. I think it was like literally after my last year of coaching with that organization. But when I first broke into coaching spring hockey, it was couldn't get over this the shock and commitment and just kind of the mindset that it had. But after a while, you kind of get accustomed to it. You got used to it, and we had some really good really good teams. I suppose to kind of cap off my point, um, it does come with a lot of development at the same time because there's not necessarily a season that you play. It's a lot of tournaments that your team is a part of, and so there's a lot more time for development, which I think is where a lot of the popularity with the Hockey Super League and the Premier Hockey League here in Alberta, and surrounding provinces were getting a lot of attention because they were essentially taking that spring league model and trying to incorporate it into more of a full-time winter thing. So I suppose that would be another pro of it as well. But I didn't really answer my question. Should your child play spring hockey or summer hockey, or should they be involved in a different sport? I think it's just dependent on what your child wants to do at the end of the day. But there are pros and cons to each side of it. But I think there are more pros to playing a different sport and just kind of expanding our horizons versus playing hockey 365 days a year.
Are you ready for this?
No. Nathan's gonna shatter my world right here. Is what's gonna happen.
I apologize for anybody out there who disagrees with me, and I fully invite you to disagree with me. That is fine.
I disagree.
We are going on a tangent here.
Oh no.
I do not like spring hockey until I would argue maybe 14, 15, I don't know. At the time of your career that if you're thinking of playing an elite level, maybe then you can make an argument. But here's why I don't like it. First off, there's plenty of studies out there of the cross training that you're talking about, doing something like tennis, baseball, even if you are playing spring hockey, play as a forward, work on other skill sets that you don't get to work on normally when you're in the net. And to become a better goalie, you have to become a better athlete. And one of the best ways of doing that, because it's really hard to take a 10-year-old kid and to tell him to hit the gym 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and to actually get anything out of it. It's a lot easier to tell a 10-year-old for 3 or 4 times a week to go kick a soccer ball or hit a couple dingers out of the park or whatever the case is. And it's going to help them work on some of these things that they don't normally get to work on, and they don't even know they're working on it. They're having fun. They're being kids. The other thing too that a lot of people don't take into account, especially as goalies, our position sucks on the body. It is not good for knees. It is not good for hips. It is not good for backs, groins, whatever. And it's something that if you're playing goal year round and you're not giving your body that time to rest and adapt and all of that stuff, like I think we're probably going to see, because recently there's been such a big shift to 365 24/7 hockey, we're going to start to see an uptick, in my opinion, of shortened careers. Like, I mean, I tore my meniscus at 18. I tore my other meniscus at 19. I had a pretty hefty hip surgery at 24 and a less hefty hip surgery on the other hip at 29. And I didn't even play spring hockey. Now, I didn't take the greatest care of my body. I can admit that. But we're having kids that are on the ice 6 days a week playing goal. And we all know how unfriendly practices are for goalies already. They're probably dropping 200-300 times into the butterfly. That's probably an exaggeration. But either way, the wear and tear on the body is not good. Take a break. Like it's one of those things that to me it's not worth it. Like, yes, I know hockey's fun. Yes, we want to play. Yes, we want to get better, all of that stuff. But there's other ways you can do that and still have fun and take care of your body a little bit better, in my personal opinion. And then the other thing too is a lot of times with spring hockey is the problems that goalies have during winter hockey are magnified. There's very little goalie development during the winter. There's almost zero during the spring. Like one of our major clients with True North, they bring us out a ton during the winter. In the spring, it's no longer the organization bringing us out, it's up to the teams. Now, some of the teams don't bring us out at all. Some of the teams do maybe once, maybe twice, because it's a shortened season and it's more focused around tournaments and games as opposed to development. So it's already one of those things that goalies struggle to find any sort of good development and goalie friendly practices to begin with, and I find it's even worse in spring. Now again, it's just my personal experience. There are a lot of programs out there that are doing good things that's not the case, but I just find that that kind of takes a step back in spring hockey. And again, a lot of times too, a lot of this stuff's a bit of a cash grab, right? Like it's, hey, come play our 4 elite tournaments that'll get you, scouts from the States and all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then there's maybe one guy sitting in the stands from an ACHA Div 3 team that is just there because he's getting paid to be there, kind of thing, right? So I don't know. I personally am not a big fan of spring hockey. All in all, you guys do you. I know the goalies, like, they just love being on the ice a lot of times, and that's great. But I think there's better ways to go about it. I think, in my personal opinion, there are way more benefits to walking away from the rink, stepping out of the crease for 3-4 months, and coming back refreshed and eager, right? Like, personally, with me, my last year at junior, if I wasn't getting an NCAA scholarship, I was just like okay with being done and okay with retiring after junior. And about 2 months into the summer, after being away from it for 2 months, I'm like, nah, I want to get back in there. So I was already enrolled at Nate. I called the coach. I said, hey, I'm already enrolled. I wasn't going to play, but I'm interested. And they're like, yeah, we were still looking for a third goalie, come on board, and played my 2 years of college and all of that. So I think there's benefit to taking that step back and having a bit of that reflection away from the rink as opposed to just being there all the time. End rant.
um yeah, so I think you basically took what I said and then said it better. um well
I just elaborated on more of stewed hatred for
yeah.
spring hockey.
um yeah, and so like there's definitely this shift, and again, with here in Alberta with like the HSL and the PHL, like there's that kind of similar mindset where my kids gotta play 365 24/7, and they gotta play for like like we don't like Hockey Alberta because biasness and whatever else, and cash grabs and whatever else, and the same point. And then they go to these teams, and I have to admit, as much as I like, you know, spring, like I'm a fan of it to a certain extent, and I'm a fan of HSL and PHL and these outlaw leagues, because I think it gives more diversity when it comes to opportunities to play the game that we love. Um, the reality still remains the same, where 1% of players, whether it be in the mainstream system or in the non-mainstream system, go on to play or go on to have careers rather in hockey at the highest level. Right? Only now the 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 pool of players has just expanded. So go from 1% to 0.5%. I think, though, going back to networking for a second there, again, like, this is where I got essentially kind of how I got my career in coaching. Aside from doing the goalie camps and the goalie schools and whatever else, but I think I can definitively say that I can attribute a lot of my success in coaching goalies and being where I'm at today comes from leagues like spring hockey and these outlaw leagues, if you want to call it that. And uh um and that's how essentially, like, I'm able, like, I can definitively say I've coached junior hockey, maybe not junior hockey at the highest level, but I can say, but I can say that, and I can track it back to, because I did this and that, and because I was, again, posting about it on social media and everything else, it has garnered attention from certain people that have said, hey, we want to have this guy on our team, or hey, I know this guy, and I have a cousin or a nephew or whoever that is also working in hockey that is doing that. Same thing from a player side. You have a coach that is coaching. I know I recall this definitively because I think in my last year of coaching spring hockey, we had a coach, guy by the name of Tony Orsini, very good guy, I quite like him, who is was I think at the time is now not so much, is the Canadian Athletic Club here in Alberta. Is one of the head coaches for that club, and so that's where he essentially got a lot of his players, because he did have a couple years of coaching spring hockey, and that's where he got a lot of his players from. So again, you want to talk about networking in that regard too. It is another avenue, but I don't want to say it's a desired avenue, should we call it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely pros. Like, our biggest client with True North Goaltending, I started with them when they were strictly a spring program, and that was almost 6 years ago. And they grew from there to be one of the unsanctioned leagues. Like, they were one of the teams in the unsanctioned leagues, and now they're at the point that they have like 9 teams, and they do winter and spring and all of that. But yeah, like, before True North was even a thing and I was getting started on my own coaching, I reached out to a bunch of teams. They were the only ones that got back and said, yeah, we'd love to have you on board. And kind of the rest is history. So yes, there's the avenue there, and yes, there's some pros. I just I would encourage you guys to really sit down and think and weigh the pros versus the cons, because yes, spring hockey is fun. Yes, there's some things you can do, like with opportunities, networking, all that stuff. It's just, think about some of the other stuff. Like, it's tough if you're 25 and you, you're having troubles walking, or you have to take a couple weeks off of your job every few months because of XYZ joint issue or whatever, and some of the other stuff that we talked about as well. But um, I know I'd sound like a negative Nelly or whatever, and I'm just putting spring
Really couldn't
hockey
tell.
down. But yeah, there are good aspects to it. I guess my thing is the shift towards it, like it's almost like an automatic now that if you're playing at a
Yeah.
somewhat high level winter, you know,
Yeah,
level of
you essentially
hockey.
have to go from playing whatever double A,
Yeah.
triple A to going into play double A, triple A spring hockey at the end of
Yeah,
the day.
everyone's like, "Oh, what spring team are you on? Oh, what tournaments are you on? Oh, are you going to
Yeah.
this 3-on-3 league? Oh, are you playing in this 4-on-4 tournament?" Like it's like, "Oh my god." Like,
Yeah.
step
Yeah.
back, take a
Yeah.
breath.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And
but that's I don't know.
yeah, I guess just it's at the end of the day where take a step back, especially for the older athletes, take a step back and figure out what you want to do with this sport. What is your end goal with this sport? I think it's safe to say that 99% of the population who play this game want to go off and play in the NHL. The reality of it is that obviously 1%, 0.5 of a percent actually only make it. No, I think it's like 1 to 2% actually get to go on to play major juniors, and then 0.5 of a percent on that actually gets to go and play in the show. So it's just, I suppose it's just a matter of what is your end goal, and what is going to be the most optimal way for you to get there. Realistically, nobody's getting drafted out of spring summer hockey.
Especially at 8 years old.
Exactly. You know, you look at, I mean, like, I think like the brick tournament here in Edmonton comes to mind. I love that tournament. I quite enjoy. Oh, oh, really? Oh, really?
Well, it's just, yeah, that's a whole other episode.
Fair enough. But it is interesting though to see the guys who played in that tournament now playing in the show. But again, that's only 0.2% of all the kids who played in the brick tournament here in Alberta, from all of the different provinces and states that go into play in that tournament. And it's good hockey. I quite enjoy it. But realistically, only 2% of that, 0.2% of that, go off to play in the NHL. Despite Nathan's objections to it, again, it's one of those things like you want to strategically, almost in a way, kind of map out your career. And I think Pete Fry, when we had him on, he had a similar kind of idea. It's like, what what was it he called it, like your goalie
Map out your goalie career.
Map out your goalie career.
And
exactly.
I've stolen that and used it a couple times with seminars, I guess, with our goalies. but
that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Right. Is that these are options that are there, but what is your end goal as an athlete at the end of the day? And you got to think about, like, is it actually optimal? Is it actually feasible? Is it actually realistic to be playing hockey 365, 24/7? Just something to think about.
Agreed. All right. You want to take us home?
Well, yeah, we'll take us home to today. I've been thinking about how to streamline this, so I'm gonna go this way. Thank you guys so much for watching over on the YouTube channel of the DIY Goalie channel. If you are listening to us over on any podcasting sites, or if this is your first time listening to us, thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to give us a follow, whether you're listening to us on iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever podcasting platform that you're listening. When it comes to social media, we have plenty of those as well. If you want to follow our in-house goalie school at True North Goaltending on all the social media platforms, except for Instagram, because we like to be different, and we're actually called at YEG Goalie Coach over on Instagram. There, it's the @ YEG Goalie Coach over on Instagram. If you want to follow any of our DIY Goalie podcast content, it's just DIY Goalie on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, any social media TikTok, YouTube, exactly. Any social media platform. Make some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.